Okay, we move forward. Next area, the risk register. Invariably included in the SBL pre-scene. Important for us for the reasons I outlined up top. We've talked about risks. We need to be familiar with these various types as detailed within this particular pre-scene. Remember that when we think about risk, we're sort of likening or indeed linking the whole area of the environment, control environment, with control activities. Let's remember the COSO Model 2 and the key elements of it. So what do we see here in terms of this risk register? Nothing untoward, nothing that we wouldn't expect. Strategic, financial, economic, compliance, and indeed operational. And these were touched on up top. We know the reasons for them. What are the most important ones? Again, I touched on this area previously. For me, certainly the strategic risks, because of the nature of the industry, so competitive and getting more competitive day by day as new entrants come in. Outside of that, for me, operational, IT systems failures. The others, slightly secondary, notwithstanding the fact that there are some concerns, we think, about this area of the KPIs shown a little bit lower down on the page. In other words, that increasing revenues but falling margins. That must be on the boardroom table, so to speak, in relation to a key issue for this business, because if the decline that we'll see in a moment in terms of percentages continues, we have a problem. So risks we've covered. I have said up top, I didn't mention it here, other ones, reputational, key person, definitely relevant. You remember what I said when we touched on risks up top? I said, let's look at broad risks outside of what we see within this particular pre-scene. Moving down the page to performance, yeah? The whole area of performance, obviously within SBL pre-scenes, we get extracts. And these extracts hint at certain areas. And it's pretty straightforward. We see, for example, on the fee income side, a 4.7 increase between 2x3 and 2x1. That sounds fine. But unfortunately, on the flip side, margins or operating profit, we see a 3.8% decrease. Now, in terms of the margin, I've done the calculations here. It reflects what we see up top. These are the sorts of numbers, the sorts of percentages, if you will, that we need to be able to quote for me. Now, why? It shows a knowledge of the pre-scene. I see underperforming students very often have to scrabble around in the exam. This is what they tell me, because they weren't sure about whether or not the revenue had increased and at what percentage, or they weren't sure about what the KPI extracts within the pre-scene actually said. We can't have that situation. Remember, you're most likely an independent consultant. You would come armed to this company with information. You wouldn't come armed with a document and say, I'll just check that if you're in a meeting with the partners or the managers. These numbers need to be learned, memorized. Moving into our final page, I believe, we're talking here about the tenders. Remember that the tendering process is very much linked to the corporate area, and we get some stats in terms of success. Now, I'm not an expert on the EM industry, but the figures look fairly good, and we are told that there's a marginal improvement in 2x3 compared to 2x2. Obviously, tender success and being successful in these pitches is key to corporate business clients. In terms of NPS, again, falling NPS. This is a concern for sure. Let's be able to quote the figures. And indeed, consider the whole area of the link, as I've mentioned several times now, between KPIs, CSFs, overall objectives. So, really, this concludes my run through, our run through, if you will, because we're doing this together. Your success is important to me and to you, I know. 6 videos, some shorter than others, some have red flags, quite a few, some have a lot of green highlighting, some don't. The bottom line is, let's use this set of videos to springboard towards the strategic analysis. What I would do is get savvy with the video first and then watch the 3 parts of the strategic analysis, which are long videos, and take you through all of those tools and techniques that I discussed at the outset. We've got to get you informed, and we're making some progress. So listen, thank you for listening to each of the 6 videos. Hope you found it helpful and that your studies are going well. Cheers.